Today we are exploring a really fascinating discovery in dog science, which is gifted word learner dogs, together with someone whose work has really shaped the entire field of canine science, of dog research. And it's truly an honor to welcome Professor Ádám Miklósi here. So Ádám, thank you so much for joining us here today. You're one of the leading figures in dog research worldwide, and you co-founded the famous Family Dog Project at the Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest, Hungary. So many of the scientific insights we have about dogs today comes from your work and the work of your team and colleagues. And today's topic really relates directly to this. So there are some dogs around the world who can learn the names of dozens, sometimes even hundreds of objects. And these so-called gifted word learner dogs are really incredibly rare. And your research helps us to understand why they matter and what they kind of reveal about how animals process human language.
Thank you very much for having me here today, and I really enjoy this conversation because I think I am not very exceptional in that sense. We have a very collaborative people around, and without them I couldn't have anything achieved in that field in dog science, but we are really happy that we can, through investigating dogs and using scientific methods, to help dog trainers, dog owners and experts to actually learn more and know more about their favorite animals.
We are truly grateful to have you with us, and what makes this topic especially exciting is that these abilities don't come from special training, they emerge in normal family homes, and that's why your scientific perspective is the perfect place to begin this conversation.
Those special dogs, the gifted word learner dogs, they are really rare, as we said. So from an evolutionary and cognitive perspective, what do you say? What do these exceptional individuals reveal about how dogs learn human language? And what does this mean for studying the origins of word learning in non-human species?
Well, the honest, very short answer is I have no idea actually what it means. This was really a discovery. We made together with Claudia Fugazza. Obviously, we knew about such dogs existence because there was early papers about Rico, who was probably quite famous in Germany, and then we had Chaser, the famous dog in the US. So there were such reports, but really we started very similarly actually. So we also found the dog, let's put it this way. But what was really, I think, the difference that we went on and trying to look for others, because that was sort of missing from these other earlier projects. So they were not so keen on actually finding other dogs, actually arriving at the population of these dogs, not just a single individual or maybe two. So that was the difference. On the other hand, you asked about the evolution. So really we don't know, because in evolution there are things that are really selected for. So that's very important in everyday life. They give an advantage to the population, and dogs and many other domesticated animals were really selected for some specific traits. But with this word learning or this label learning, I have really no idea. So another concept in evolution is what it's called the byproduct, that things are happening because of selection, but somehow other things are also coming up, like, by the way, would I put it in a normal language, which have no function, no specific reason, they just happen to actually emerge. And I could also imagine that even this idea could also be valid for the human language. So maybe we evolved some traits which were very important for our surviving, but language as such evolved or emerged, by the way, accidentally, but later it became a very important feature for humans. So maybe the same fate is also for these label learning dogs. I don't know.
What does the existence of these rare gifted dogs tell us about individual differences in dog cognition? And how does this fit into the bigger picture of canine intelligence?
I think this is a very exciting question, because that was never really asked in other animals like humans. Actually, like all humans, also a kind of a special animal. It's so special because we are also humans. Otherwise, it's just an average animal like any other. So this is what's important, is that we have this other concept, which is the giftedness or talent. And that it's actually very important, especially in pedagogy in humans, that there are, and I should say that everybody is talented in some way. And the modern pedagogy's goal is actually to find those features of talent in each pupil in each child and then develop it as much as possible. So this concept is very important for humans, but before this, nobody really asked this in terms of animals. And it's actually, I can understand why, because if you imagine an elephant that you probably also know, you can have an elephant. But how can I find out that that animal or that elephant is talented in anything? Because for that, I would know what is to be an elephant and how could you be a better elephant like the average elephant. And science is usually about average. So we are observing many elephants and we're looking for the general laws of being an elephant. So the same question is also with regard to dogs. But the lucky thing is that we have similar features in dogs and humans, like, for example, this ability to connect actions with labels. So basically reacting to signals or comments in that sense, so sit, come, whatever. But then also we have this other human feature, this labeling of objects, of giving names of objects. So in this regard, we could now really estimate what is a talented person as a child, for example. And also in this regard, it's very important to realize that we have these kind of talented dogs who are different from the others. So in that sense, I think conceptually, it's a very new perspective, I would say, that maybe this talentedness, this extreme ability in some cases for other animal species, that is the first that we can investigate in dogs with connection to a feature that is actually also familiar to us, in this case, word learning.
For a long time, people believed that learning object names quickly was something that only humans could do. So how do gifted word learner dogs challenge this idea?
I must say that word learning is a complicated thing. So for us humans, it's very natural. But for us, a lot of things are natural, which are not so natural. So imagine that how much time we spend, as parents or as children from the other side, to learn these names of objects. And especially the beginning is a very long period when a child realizes that this is a possibility to actually labeling object by words, and also that is important what the parents or older sisters or brothers tell them about the word. So this is a long procedure. Now, in animals, there has been always this around. So even for dogs, there are old accounts, anecdotal accounts, that some dogs knew the names of objects. Or we also have some other examples from chimpanzees, from bonobos. Even, there's a very famous example of Alex the gray parrot, who actually is one of the famous word learners, and also parrots in general actually are known for this feature. However, for dogs, it is not, first of all, it's not logical, because dogs are not really vocal, so they can't speak the names. But it was that was a very important discovery to find out that at least, maybe that's not a very nice way to put it, but they can understand the labels of these objects when they hear them. And why it's interesting, because these objects are in generally not very interesting for the dogs. So when we observe our dog, they are not very keen on investigating them. Yes, they play with them, but for most of them, it isn't matter that is a yellow ball or a big ball or a small ball. They might have their favorite objects. They might have their favorite objects actually for a day or two, then they lose this interest. So for dogs, for the general dog, the object is not something very special in comparison to humans. So therefore, it was really fascinating for us to find these gifted dogs who, for some reason, are really keen on knowing the label and the object and connecting them. So it's really very interesting to have them around, because we can now ask really fundamentally new questions, and that's important for a scientist, obviously.
So over the years, Adam, your research has shown, or the research about dogs in general has shown, that dogs are really very good at reading our social cues and also communicating with us humans. So where do the gifted word learners fit into this kind of bigger story, into this bigger picture? Also, especially how dogs evolve to really interact so closely with us humans.
So one important issue is for us, we're still with Claudia spending hours and hours thinking about it, what makes these dogs special? Because when we do many tests, many other behavior tests, we don't see them as very different from all the other dogs. So they are having this very specific interest. And obviously, generally dogs actually are very interested in humans. So one feature what humans really like in dogs, I am really pushing it too far, but when the dog is just watching us, so they sit down and spends hours of like we looking at a famous painting, they just watch, and people like it. But also what it happens during this time, the dogs are learning about us, they're learning about our gestures, our behavior, they're trying to figure out, okay, what is this person doing next, and so on. So this is a general feature in dogs. But what is special feature in these dogs, that they are also not just listening to us, because that's also other dogs are doing, but they are picking out these words that somehow are connected to the object. And this is what we are not really understanding with this why they're doing that, because this is part of this big ability, or this is big skill, but it's very a special skill. So we can say that, okay, many people like singing, but some really also hear specific sounds in the voice of others, which a general singer might not even notice, or this kind of parallels I could make. Now, why this is interesting? Because I think that dog cognition, apart from that, is kind of general. So what a small Chihuahua, a big German Shepherd, or a Border Collie can do or cannot, there are obviously limitations, maybe even depending on the breed or the size or the sex, whatever, but this is sort of general. Now, what is interesting in these dogs, that they give us a means to investigate the canine mind by actually asking these questions to them, because they can have a specific response by picking these objects, retrieving them to us, or actually not retrieving them for some specific conditions. And then the idea is that through this interaction with these specific dogs, we find out something about their cognitive abilities, how their mind works, which might be general. So it might be also the case in other dogs, but we don't have the means to actually investigate them in these animals. There was a very famous ethologist, Donald Griffin, who said sometimes that communication is the window on the animal mind. And I think this is also what we like to use, this metaphor, this communication window. So basically, these dogs provide a window on the canine mind.
That's a wonderful statement to close our interviews. Thank you so much, Ádám, for sharing kind of your broader scientific perspective on this topic. And I'm sure your insights of you and your team will help us to see really those special gifted word learner dogs, not just as kind of rare curiosities, but really as a window into how animals and perhaps even humans really learn and communicate.
To everyone watching, this is just the beginning of our Gifted Word Learner Month. What these dogs can do is truly remarkable, and by understanding them better, we learn more about dogs in general, including the ones living in our own homes. So follow us on social media and join our newsletter to stay up to date with everything we have planned. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next video.